Hi, welcome to Mondays with Willie on TheW.A.SPodcast. As always, it's a pleasure to have you listening to me. And of course, I'm excited to have you listening to me. Now, one of the questions that I got about Mondays with Willie, what is it all about? And I've decided to answer it in this one, in my preamble, before we get into today's episode. So Mondays with Willie is essentially a segment of the Wars podcast. For those of you that follow my episodes of the Wars podcast, where I talk about my experiences, specifically business experiences. And I must say, this is a disclaimer. None of my businesses are visibly successful yet. Hopefully we'll get there someday. But I think I've learned a lot that would kickstart your entrepreneur journey. Okay, if you're an aspiring entrepreneur um, or a business enthusiast, so that you don't have to make some of the mistakes I made and some of the things that I had to go through and some of the things I had to learn after losing so much money, so much time, and of course, time is one of the most money is, but time is one of the most essential things in business. And that's also because you can't replace time. You can replace money, you can recover the money you lost, but you can't replace the time. Okay, now I was fortunate enough to start very early in my career. Sorry, very early in my life. Well, in my career in a sense, but very early. I think I was about 15 or 16 when I had my first business. Um, and that's an episode on its own because I think I got scammed. Well, I did get scammed, not that I think. I did get scammed, and that's how the money. That's how, because I lost a lot of money. That's how it died. That's an episode on its own. But yeah, I was fortunate enough to start very early, um, and then I was unfortunate enough to start prematurely. Okay, so there are things that I did that I shouldn't have done. There are times when I went into stuff without knowing exactly what I needed to know about that industry. And of course, like I'm saying, like I said earlier, I did lose quite a lot of money. I spent a lot of money. I lost time that I can't recover. And of course, there are just certain things that were spontaneously done. So on this segment, I'll basically be talking about that. And for those of you that find it useful, use the knowledge. Okay. And for those of you that are already entrepreneurs or successful, yeah, maybe you can learn one or two things from my journey, hopefully. Um, yeah. So buckle up. Let's keep doing this. I haven't done one in almost 2 to 3 weeks. That's because I had some, family issues going on, and the power situation is not helping. So yeah, this is me coming back from the last episode. I hope you heard the last episode or watched the last episode, Shoot Your Shot, where I basically talked about going for it and how I got a meeting with Arnold Mohapi, who is basically one of South African's digital marketing specialists, and he's made so many businesses successful and has gained them so much money, so much traction. And yeah, and I got a meeting with him, and of course we spoke. But um, on the World's podcast, I'm going to have an episode that's going to talk about um how and why I didn't proceed with him. Okay, not because he wasn't good. He's brilliant and fantastic at what he does. But again, now that I'm more experienced, I know when to get into something. Okay. And at the time, just to get into it a little bit, he was a little bit too far ahead for where my company is at the moment. And so involving him would just be premature, and it I would lose more than I would gain. Okay. Yeah. So please, before we get into it, please like, subscribe, share, tell a friend, do all the things YouTubers tell you to do. Okay, please follow me. On Facebook, the Wars Podcast. On Instagram, the Word Podcast 2020. Okay, I will add the links in the description on YouTube so that you can follow me. But yeah, let's get into it. So, in my last episode, I did promise you that I've been working on something and I've been talking about something, or researching on something rather in business, and I called it the Mapogo business theory. And yeah, as a lover of nature, as someone who watches wildlife a lot, I was sitting someday, doing my own thing, um, and then I noticed this coalition of lions that were a formidable team. Okay, and what was striking is that each lion had its own individual traits, but they used those individual traits um, to benefit the entire team, the entire pride, and they were maximizing their own individual strengths and using them in a way that benefited the coalition. So I'm sitting and thinking, because I've struggled a lot with building a team over the years, okay? I'm getting there, but I've struggled a lot. And one thing I've learned is a strong team is very essential to success. So, as I was watching, I then likened it to business, and I thought, you know what? If business had a team like this group of lions, it would be unstoppable. So then I did my research, kept watched it over and over and over again to understand their traits, to understand their personal attributes. And then I likened that to a business team. And then I thought, wow, it amazed me. And so I came up with something called the Mapogo business theory. And today's episode is basically the Mapogo business theory, building an unstoppable team. So let's get right into it. So, in business, forming a high performance team is the foundation of success. You can do all your nitty gritties, but honestly, a team, a formidable team, a high performance, purpose driven team is your foundation for success. But assembling a group of individuals who are equally driven, skilled, and committed to one of the most difficult challenges, and uh, which is building a business, is is a tough thing for a leader or an entrepreneur. Many businesses fail not because of a lack of opportunity, but because their teams lack cohesion, discipline, and a shared purpose. Okay, I'll give you an example. I'm a football fan too. You will know a lot about me by the time we're finishing this. You already know that I'm a nature lover. Now, I'm a football fan. Of course, if you don't know it already, I'm a business enthusiast. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so I'll give you an example. Let's look at PSG, right? PSG had, if not the best talent in world football over the years. And more recently, they had an astounding talent who even won the World Cup, right? Who's Kylian Mbappe. But with all that, they didn't win what they won, the Champions League, okay? Um, which is which was played on Saturday, you know, um, which is the 30th to be specific, because some people may watch it 2 weeks from now, which is the 31st of May. Yeah, they won the Champions League, and the difference between both teams, if you look at them individually, is humongous. You know, Neymar, Ravascalia, huge difference. I mean, yes, Ravascalia is good, but Neymar, come on. And so what they lack then is just cohesion. Other players thinking they're too good to play with the others, too good for the league, too good for the team. They lack discipline in terms of when to attack, when to defend. The attackers didn't want to drop back and defend because they felt they were too big. They were the stars of the team. So those generally is lack of purpose or shared purpose, and that caused them to fall. But now they're all equal. They fight when they're attacking, they attack as a unit. When they're defending, they defend as a unit. And consequently, they've won as a unit, right? So to illustrate the idea, moving on to illustrate the ideal structure of a dominant and effective business team, I'm going to use nature's most formidable coalition over the years, okay, which is the Mapogo Lion Coalition. These six lions ruled South African Sabi Sands, which is a game reserve in South Africa, with unmatched aggression, teamwork, and strategic dominance. Their reign was marked by territorial expansion, unwavering loyalty, unparalleled ability to eliminate competition, brute strength, you name it. Their story provides basically compelling analogy, that's like I told you, that's why I want to use it. It's a compelling analogy for assembling a business team that is built for success and longevity. So we're basically going to explore the Mapogo's lions' personalities, their strategic dominance, and how their traits align with different business roles, which can serve as a guide for you as you're building your team. Um, as I said, I don't want if people shouldn't make the same mistakes I made or that other people have made. And just maybe you can skip this if you listen to this. Okay, so what can we learn from the Mapogo lions? Before diving into individual roles, okay, let's analyze why the Mapogo coalition was very strong. Okay, for those of you that may not watch nature enough, um, here's the first thing. The first thing is strength in numbers, right? Power of collaboration. Many people overlook that. I see too many people working independently these days, especially these entrepreneurs these days who want to be seen as the CEO. You know what I mean? The guy, the man. You know. I like most lions, right? This coalition was unusual. Most lion prides consist of two or three members, female out, members, the, the males, right? You can have two males and then you have maybe six females and stuff like that. But this coalition was different. They had six male lions. This gave them a major advantage in terms of numbers. It allowed them to dominate rival coalitions and take over vast territories. Like I'm telling you, the other territories they were taking over, they would find like two males. So you can imagine, man, six brute lions against two males. I mean, it's uncalled for. So in business, right, it's not about numbers, okay? But we can relate it to that. So when you're assembling your team, you want well-rounded and you want to strategically choose your team so that you can create an advantage over your competition. Now, let's relate it to business, okay? So strength in numbers, that means you should now be your executive director should be 15. You know what I mean? Your developers, if you're running a tech startup, should be 18. No, 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 no. If we relate it to business, or what you can think of is essentially maximizing each and every individual's abilities, okay, so that they can both contribute uniquely and to the fullest. And that team works as a unit rather than relying on individual talents. Okay? So that's with strength in numbers. Secondly, ruthless execution. Too many of us are laid back when we're running businesses. We run it like a routine. But if you watch people who build businesses, people who really, really are enthusiastic about seeing a business grow from the scraps to maybe $1 million company, or just let's just say successful, because not all businesses are going to grow into millions and whatnot, but they may be making a considerable amount and be successful. I mean, we all want to get to that $1 million status in business, but honestly, not many are going to. But um you know where was I? I'm a bit confused now. with execution, right? You need to be significant. You have to be ruthless. You have to eliminate your weakness, your weaknesses, and maximize your strengths. Okay, that's with ruthless execution. Now, the Mapogo Lions were famous for an aggressive approach, right? They did not just expand their territory; they eliminated competitors, often wiping out entire prides to remove future threats. This ensured dominance for years. They didn't leave anything behind. Now, of course, in business, you're not going to go out, wiping out people physically, no. But you're going to do it, of course, strategically, right? You will eliminate their efficiencies. You will, capitalize on their weak strategies and ensure they don't come back in business. I'll give you an example. The whole Yango Orlando situation. Yango came in with ruthless execution, leaving no takers. And we all know what happened right now to Orlando. Okay. And then also internally, unproductive team members who threaten the company's momentum. Do not give a chance. Be ruthless. Okay. I am constantly speaking um to my co-founder and also some of my, fellow directors. I tell them that's at my company. You know what I mean? My startup. I am constantly telling them, lads, we've got to be on the same wavelength. And whenever someone faults, I don't hide behind the wheel. No, I'm there, putting it in their face. And I encourage them to tell me, regardless of what they think my position is, CEO, founder, I encourage them. Tell me when I'm not meeting the standard. Be ruthless. I expect you to tell me, um, Bwana hapa sumu chitavanzelo hapa. Okay, not like that. But you know what I mean? Be diplomatic about it. But tell me to deliver. If I'm not bringing in or putting in what I need to put in, okay? It's a company we're running. It's not about me. It's about the company. It's a separate entity from me, right? So yeah, so that's it about ruthless execution. So a strong team should not tolerate mediocrity. And thirdly, adaptability. Now with the Mapogos, hey, these guys were adaptable. They were agile. If there's any true definition about agile principles, it's the Mapogo Lions. They did not just rely on their brute strength, they were highly adaptive. When challenged, they would change their strategies and find new ways to maintain control. In business, companies that do not evolve with changing market trends, consumer behaviors, and technologies risk obsolescence. Okay? So, look, right now we've got the AI wave, right? Now, of course, you have to look at your country first. Many people forget that. There's just that AI wave, but look at your country. Are we ready for AI like that? But even then, you can then start to adopt AI strategies or use AI tools to maximize um, your employee strengths, to maximize your business output and all that. Like one way in a technology environment, right? You've got a tech startup. Why should software take you years to build? There's AI. You right now you don't need right now you could design if you know a bit of something in technology, you could design your website using AI. You can then implement it using AI. Of course, of course is there I mean you eradicate the individuals like people who have got an eye for customer preferences and whatnot. But what I'm saying is you can move quicker. So instead of um continuing the traditional way, the conventional way, you can adopt AI and quicken your business deliverables, which will then see you stay ahead of the game, right? So, like I was saying, companies that don't evolve with changing market trends, consumer behaviors, and technologies risk obsolescence. And having a team that is resilient and adaptive is key to staying competitive. Fourth, probably one of the most important things, loyalty and trust. You see, loyalty and trust among team members is probably the most important thing. Now, going back to football, right? If certain team members don't trust other team members, they won't give you the ball. Now, what that means is if you're still in that team, you're basically a passenger because you don't have the ball. You're dysfunctional at that point. You know what I mean? So you're basically a passenger and the team is carrying it. So if there's no trust, if there's no loyalty, right, it's the glue that holds everything together. So the Mapogo Lions displayed some dominant personalities, of course, but they trusted and believed in one another. They never turned on each other. Of course, going forward, these are animals. You know what I mean? Come on, guys. These are animals. Of course, at some point, there's going to be one that says, I want to be king now. This one is older. It's my turn now. Okay. But yeah, they, in their days when they were dominant and they were, taking over pride lands and all that, there was loyalty and there was trust, and it was basically the glue that kept them together. So in business, a dysfunctional team where individuals compete for personal gain is destined to collapse one way or another. Strong business teams prioritize loyalty, shared goals, and trust in leadership. One way to ensure that there's loyalty and trust is first and foremost understand what your purpose is, because the the CFO shouldn't compete with the COO. You know what I mean? The only way they start to compete is if they don't really know what they're trying to achieve. You know what I mean? Because look, we are both trying to make sure that this business grows to a certain standard. And when it does get there, we're all going to enjoy. Okay, so we have to continue to ensure we communicate, especially as a CEO, communicate to your directors or your chiefs. Tell them exactly what we're there to do and how that's going to benefit everyone going forward. So that's with understanding the Mapogos. Okay. Now mapping the Mapogo Lions to business team roles, which is now I think is my favorite part of this. Okay, because listen, the Lions were six. If you follow me in the beginning, the Lions were six. So I know their names actually. So there was Makulu, there was Mr. T, there was Kinky Tail. I'm sorry if the names sound cartoonish, but guys, this is a very serious topic. There was Pretty Boy, there was Rasta, and there was what was there? Dreadlocks. Okay. Now I don't think we're going to go over go through all of them. I think I'm only going to go through four people, because if I go through all the six, you will think you need six directors to lead a company, start a company. No, no, no. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I think it was in my preamble. You don't have to strength in numbers. When I was talking strength in numbers, you don't have to be six. You can be two. But if you know you have a shared purpose, you have sheer determination to execute the tasks. Say it's a tech startup. I'm a little biased because I'm in software. Say it's a tech startup. You can have the CEO, then you can have your next person, your co-founder, who's the CTO. Okay. Your CTO can handle the technology part. You can handle the business side of things. And from that time, from there on, you can carry the company and grow it slowly. Okay, for as long as each one of you is utilizing and maximizing their skills to contribute to the company, to growing the company. Yes. So anyway, we're going to go through four. Okay. And these four, like I've said, you can then roll back into two, or you can split them into six. It's up to you. Okay. So of course you need your founder, right? And as one, I take pride. Okay. You need your CEO, your founder. Now, in the lions, I mentioned their names. So now we'll go through them. There was a big lion called Makulu, right? He was the strategy. He was strategic, he was experienced, he was adaptable, he was dominant. He had that aura. You know what I mean? He had the aura. In the coalition, right? As the oldest and the largest member of the pride, Makulu provided leadership, he provided wisdom, he was ensuring survival and cohesion of the team. He was there to point them in the right direction. He was there to sort of like be wise, understand when we need to attack, to understand, you know, the cohesive nature of the team, to understand each individual as they are. It's funny I'm talking about lions like this, but it's the truth. Watch the documentary. So that was Makulu, he was big guy, you know. Now in business, right? This represents the CEO or the founder, of course. The person with a long-term vision who guides the company, the one with the aura, the swagger to glide through challenges, to make the tough decisions. Like I was saying, the one who speaks to the directors, the executives and tell them, listen, CFO, you're not executing your tasks as you said you should. Your team is not performing. Or COO, this should have been done. This is the direction. This is how I want the company to go. That's the CEO. That's Makulu. You understand? And you should inspire the team. Um, I don't know if I should say this, but anyway, I won't because that's some other company stuff. But yeah, I've worked in places where I've seen how the CEO can basically change the narrative of the company. For those of you who know me, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I've worked in places where you just change the CEO and the company is completely different. Everything is different. You know what I mean? The way you're going about tasks, the way you're executing tasks, the way you can tell even the different departments. You may be in a different department, but you can tell that the different departments are also, they can feel it. Chamane chabwela ako ichi. You know what I mean? Like you can then sense it, and but as much as he is, what's the word? Not frightening, but as he's more of, he inspires the team, Now when you inspire people, there's like a fear. If you work with people, it's just like in football, man. There's people who are afraid to not perform a certain way because Cristiano Ronaldo is going to say something because they inspire him. He inspires them. So that's the aura you have to have as a CEO. And you see the misconception about business is people think when they are founders, they're automatically CEOs. No, you're not. You can be a founder, but not a CEO. So if you're not Makulu, find yourself a Makulu. You understand? You can be founder, you can keep that title. You know what I mean? But you've got to keep someone who does that, who drives, who inspires the team, who guides the company, who, sets the strategic objective, the goals of the company, the long-term vision. That's Makulu. And if you're not, find one. There's no shame in it. Okay? Yeah, let's move to the second row. Remember, I said I'm going to talk about four. So I've spoken about the CEO. Now we're going into the second one. What do you think the second one is? It's a pity this is not a live one. But anyway, you guessed it right. Yeah, sure. It's the COO or the execution lead, depending on what you want to call them. Now, parallel to the CEO, these are the personal traits of Mr. T, who was basically the enforcer in the Pride, the Mapogo group. He was ruthless. He was aggressive. He was relentless. He was bold. In the coalition, Mr. T was the enforcer. He was ensuring dominance and making brutal decisions for the survival of the group. This individual is in business is basically your chief operating officer or your execution lead, responsible for aggressive expansion, business expansion, enforcing the company strategy that Makulu has put in place, eliminating inefficiencies that could weaken the business team. So this COO can then go to like I keep referring to a dev to a tech startup, can go to, let's say, your lead engineer and say, wait a minute, we're building a payment system. We were supposed to have delivered it 3 months ago. We're behind. We haven't delivered it. Where is the system? He can then notice also your lead engineer to have certain inefficiencies and maybe keeps missing on his deadlines and that kind of thing. He's not doing it right. When he looks at that, he should be able to enforce, either fire that person, suspend that person, find means to get this person to be efficient, to get this person to deliver and not weaken the business. Now, also, as a CEO, you can also see certain aspects of the business that are inefficient. So, what can I say? You can go to what example can I give? Um, Maybe a distribution system. Let's talk about those in production. Maybe your CEO can be able to look at the productions somehow, look at the not an expert in production or distribution, but you can look at maybe the way the operations happen. Let's say, I remember my dad always tells me something about how he changed the system for TAP. There's a company called TAP at the time. They used to deal with asbestos roofing, um, flower pots, and all that stuff. And he basically changed the way it was done, the operational flow. So from instead of it being physically done, he basically he computerized it and making it efficient. So that's some of the things that a CEO, he wasn't COO, he was in IT, he was systems manager. They used to have funny titles at the time, like systems manager. Right now, that basically that title is something like CIO now, right? Something like that. But he was like systems manager and computer something. So now, as a COO, that's an example of something you can eliminate. You can see, you can look at how the operations are carried out. Like, oh, so it's physically done. So when they get to the gate, they write, they get a ticket physically. Then they have to drive to the purchase area. Okay, purchase maybe let's um purchase the number of roofing sheets that they want. From the roofing sheets, they'll be given a receipt. Then they have to physically drive again, physically with the receipt. I'm giving you an example. To the dispatch, right? At the dispatch, no. Let's go to stock. Stock. The stock people, you give them that receipt that you've been given. Okay. Then they now have to count the stock, check if the receipt is pure and just correct in English. It's just, I should have just said it's correct. And then after that, go to the dispatch. And from the dispatch, you drive with your truck there, they load it, and then you drive out. Now you're doing this physically, right? Now, if you computerize that as a CEO, if you look at that and look at the operations, and look, it doesn't make sense, does it? So you can then look at how you can infuse your development team now to develop a system that can computerize that and be done like that. So that once that person purchases, maybe at starting point, the next place they go is at the dispatch, because everything is computerized. They enter everything, how many they want, how many roofing sheets they need, amount, they're given a receipt and whatnot, and make the payment. Bam! In this day and age, we can even slap in a mobile money. You know what I mean? And you pay with your mobile money or with your debit card, and then that next stop dispatch. It's within 5 minutes. Done. Something that used to take maybe 30, 40 minutes. So yeah, so that's what your CEO can do aggressively. Of course, he's not going to do it himself, but he can eliminate the inefficiencies and look at what's weakening the team, how can he improve the team, and all of that. That was Mr. T. You have, for me, in terms of roles, this is your most important person. That's what I think. I don't know what you think in the chat, in the comment section. Tell me what you think. Who do you think is the most important individual? Then we can, you can listen to your opinion. Next up is Kinky Tail. So Kinky Tail was the fearless warrior. Now in business, this is basically your um it's basically your sales and business development manager. Um, Now, what's a business if you don't sell? And many of you may argue that this is actually the most important one, but yeah, we'll hear it. What's a business if you don't sell? Now, King Tail was fearless. He was energetic, he was risk taking. Remember, the others never had risk in them. Now we've come to a risk take, and he was also protective. So in the coalition, Kinky Tail was the first to charge into battle. The one who would go in and drive. You understand? Displaying unmatched bravery and protecting the coalition. Now, he's not the strongest. He's not the most brilliant. What's the keyword? Brave. So in business, this aligns to sales and business development. The person who aggressively pursues new markets, person who's like, you know what? Um, let's go into this market. Yes, as a tech startup, I don't know who you can look into. Um, say you're coming into it, yeah, it takes that up and you look at Probase, you know what I mean, and you see them and you're like, Probase have majority of this, um, or basically market share, right? You can go in there and say, as the sales, you can go in there and say, we're going to attack this particular market, and you find new ways of dominating that market, closing deals with people you didn't think you could bring on board, pushing the company to expand into new territories. You need that. What's a business if you don't sell? Go away with that. What's a business if you don't sell? It's probably, like I said, arguably the most important. Okay, so you have to sell, you have to close deals, you have to expand into new territories. You have to listen to that. You have to. Your fourth one, fourth and final. So, Rasta. I would love to talk about the other two, but um, like I said, I'm only going to talk about the four. If you want the other two, put in the comment section and I will personally do one explaining the other two. You need a strategist who in your business is, I think you have your chief financial officer or an analyst. There's a movie, there's a series. I think it's called Jack Ryan. Do you watch? If you've watched it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He's a magnificent analyst. Numbers were his thing. To be honest with you, you can sell, but if you don't understand the numbers, you may be selling and not making a profit. You may be selling and not even expanding. You may be selling and not reaching your targets. So you may actually be selling in the negatives. You have to understand your numbers. Now, Rasta, who was the strategist, was observant as a lion. He was observant. He calculated. He was risk aware. You understand? He could see the risks, analyze the risks. He was analytical. In the coalition, Rasta was cautious and ensured the group didn't overextend. Balancing aggression with survival. Go away with that. Don't be too aggressive. Balance your aggression with your survival because other people are too ambitious. We're going to do that. We're going to achieve this. No, chief. Balance your aggression with your survival because you have to survive. It's a jungle, the business world. It's rough. You have to have a balance, and that's why you need a balanced team. And that's why you should pay particular attention to this because you need a balanced team. Balance your aggression with your survival. Now, this represents the CFO, like I mentioned, or risk manager, or the analyst. So you're ensuring financial stability, sustainability, actually, making strategic investments and balancing risk taking with financial prudence. Okay. I think we've spoken enough on this individual. Now, listen, don't forget to tell me who you think is the most important. Okay. So we've talked about Makulu. who's your CEO and founder. We've talked about Mr. T, who's your COO. We've talked about Kinky Tail, who is your sales and business development manager or executive. We've talked about Rasta, who's the strategist, who's your analyst, your CFO, or your risk manager. You tell me who you think is the most important. Okay. Um, I think I've told you what I think. I think your COO is essentially the most important. So you tell me who you think is most important. So here are the key takeaways. This is what I want you to go away with for business teams. Diversity of skills, okay? Just as the Mapogos, balance. Pay attention to balance. Balanced aggression, balance aggression with strategy. A business team must have a mix of execution, risk management, and diplomacy. The other thing, loyalty and trust. What's a team without trust? What's a team without loyalty? The Mapogos succeeded because they trusted each other. They believed in each other. A business team must be built on loyalty and shared sense of purpose. Adaptability, agility. One of the values. Yeah, one of the values for one of for a certain big company. Okay. Yeah. It's one of the values, and you need to have that. Okay, you have to be agile. You have to adapt. And Mapogo's ruled for years, unlike any other lion group. Look them up, but they were eventually outnumbered, of course, because I mean they grow older and whatnot. But businesses must continuously innovate and adapt to changing markets. I'd like a lion's life. A business's life can consistently evolve, can consistently innovate, can consistently adapt to changing markets. We know about businesses that were founded by people who are long gone. They continue to grow now. People who've retired, they continue to grow now. That's what you should infuse in your business. Ensure you have a culture that adopts adaptability and agility. Now, you have to be fearless in execution. Just as Kinky Tail charged into battles, businesses need fearless execution to dominate markets. Okay? And of course, leadership. Leadership. Strong leadership. Without a leader like Makulu, even the strongest teams can fall apart. Without a leader, football teams are fallen. If you watch the PSG Inter Milan final, you will notice that Inter Milan lacked a leader. They all looked like the Cramodine. No one, aside from the coach, but no one on the pitch showed any leadership skills. Now, this is not saying that PSG weren't strong. This is not saying that you won't find businesses that are stronger. No. But if you have a leader will always point you in a direction for victory. So a business needs a visionary CEO to maintain direction. All right, we've said so much to take in. Okay. So just to conclude, this is what the Mapogo business theory teaches us, that building a team requires more than just assembling skilled individuals. It requires a carefully structured group where each member plays a critical role. By understanding and applying the principles demonstrated by the Mapogo Lions, business leaders can form a team that is resilient, can form a team, of course, that is resilient, committed, and dominant in their industry. So here's it, people. Viewers, listeners, subscribers. By now, you must have subscribed. Here's my question to you. Are you ready to build your own Mapogo coalition in business? Until the next episode, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy this. I hope you get one or two things. And of course, like I keep saying, I'm learning just as you are. So let's grow together. Let's learn together. Let's, continue to ensure that we learn every day. Okay, business, let's continue to adapt. All right, so thank you very much for watching. My name's Awusun Anderson Simonza, and I am your host. Bye bye.